Moving on. Yesterday we had discussed about how Annie is not just passionate about nursing, but they take that passion and translate it into action. So today, now let's see some of the work that Annie has been doing across the country. And for that, I would like to call upon Dr. Rosalind Rachel, Chair, Principal, MMM College of Nursing, President Tamil Nadu and Puducherry Chapter, Annie, Dr. Shine Anil, CNO Jupiter Hospital, and Annie Special Interest Group, Chairperson, Annie, Ms. Chanda Sen, Assistant Nursing Superintendent, Manipal Hospitals, Kolkata, Member, Annie. A huge round of applause, please, everyone. Ms. Biji Jaya Pradeep, Nursing Superintendent, Group Nursing, Quality Head, Medanta Hospitals, Chapter Secretary, Haryana, Annie. And Dr. Elizabeth Varki, Chief Nursing Officer, South Kerala Cluster, Aster Medicity, Member, Annie.
Please give them all a huge round of applause.
Dr. Rosalind, ma'am, the stage is all yours.
A very good morning to all of you for the second day of the ANEICON 2026. All of you have come early, and the speakers of the previous session who were so well motivated to speak, congratulations to each one of you. Now we have come to a very important area of our presentation where Annie Special Interest Group, you would have heard this word yesterday, right? And the Annie anthem must be ringing in your minds all the time, passion to action. What is this passion to action? Is all passionate people who are all seated this early morning wishing to do great things, right? Each one of you have a lot of things going on in your mind by listening to various presentations, and each of those presentations would have given you an insight as to what should I do when I get back. So this special interest group of Annie was created so that it's not with knowledge, it's with the passion of developing something new at your area of work. And from the area of work, you would like to pass on these things to somebody else or bring people together so that standards of practice could be implemented across in the same way. So that's the interest of Annie. Passion to action. It's not with knowledge, it's with practice. So today we have 4 eminent people who have volunteered to take up this special interest in Annie to do studies or to do survey across India to find out certain things and to impart this to us, each one of us who are seated here, so that we can take it back to our institutions. So we have nursing is one of the cornerstone, and from yesterday we have been hearing about, some say it's a heart, it's a central nervous system, it's the backbone. None of us can deny the fact, but today simulation, which is the Indian Nursing Council, has incorporated simulation as one of the best learning practice, because students, when they go into the clinical area, if they have just sent straight in, now you will know with Gen Zs the challenges which we face. So simulation actually holds the hand of the student to take them into the area of practice, a real scenario which is created at our College of Nursing or at the hospital, where students will be made to practice. Even if there is an error which is happening at the simulation, we debrief and try to bring out what would be the best practice there. This hand-holding for the nurses and for the student nurses really helps her to imagine how the real situation would be. So today we have Dr. Shine, who will be presenting to us the trainer program, which she would like to be presenting. Over to Shine, who is the CNO of the Jupiter Hospital.
Good morning. Good morning, Mumbaikars and all who are gathered over here. I'm here to present the report on simulation That is special interest group, which was initiated by Thangam ma'am. A special thanks to Thangam ma'am who initiated this, and we are just the executors of this special interest group. So to talk about this group, yeah, simulation instructor, I got an opportunity to go to Boston and be a simulation instructor when I was working with Bocard Hospital. And then I took ahead this project. I did PhD on this simulation, and now I am into this interest group. Now, along with me, there are 3 other simulation instructor. Of course, Thangam ma'am is also a simulation instructor. So I would like to introduce them. That is Marilyn Flency, Principal, Apollo School of Nursing, Indraprastha Apollo Hospital, Vipin Charan, DCNO, Fortis Shalimar Bagh, Delhi, and Dr. Jaydeep Herbert, CEO Vidyanta Medical Simulation and Chair INACSL India RIG Gurgaon. So all 4 of us together have done this simulation Train the Trainer program, for which we had a book, that is Life in Action book. Many of us are aware about this. You can download this book, Life in Action, where real incidences are narrated, clinical scenarios are narrated, and what could be the remedy or what action plan can be taken, that is also mentioned in this book. So what we have done is, we have taken 1 or 2 scenarios from this book, and then we did the Train the Trainer program across 4 metropolitan cities. The whole focus area of this SIG is to impart simulation-based training in all nursing training and development. Why this need is felt is basically, we felt that there is we need to bridge the gap between theory and practice, which we have been talking since yesterday. Another more important objective is to enhance patient safety, to sharpen the nursing skills, competence and attitude. We need to, it's a forum where you can address clinical constraints, and trainers need to adopt this simulation technology across the country. Now the vision statement is to establish a sustainable simulation-based Train the Trainer program across major metros, building capacity among nurse educators in academia and hospitals to drive hands-on clinical training. So what we have done is, we have conducted this session in Delhi, Mohali, Hyderabad and Mumbai. Now in Delhi, around 49 got registered, and then once they register, they need to conduct some similar scenarios in their organization, and then only the participants were given certificate. So they total 49 registered, and participants completed their assessment, post-assessment, that is 13. Similarly, in Mohali, 35 registered, and certificate was issued for 12. In Hyderabad, 49 registered, and participants completed post-assessment. It is still going on. And in Mumbai, we recently had in Jupiter Hospital, where 32 got registered, and the post-assessment is still going on, so the certificates are not issued. So what I would like to say is, the people who were trained for this Train the Trainer, they went to their organization and they taught the students, staff nurses, ACNS, nurse educators, administrators. And if you see the graph, it shows that there are 161 responses where they said that the type of session attended is the simulation and role play. There are many feedbacks which we got across the countries, which talks about 5 in the form of Likert scale. So which talks about the session helped me understand patient safety risk better. That is around 70% said, and around around 80% said that simulation and role play helped me learn more effectively than lecture alone. And another 80% said that the debriefing is the main component of the simulation training that has helped them to reflect what went wrong, what was right, and what can be improved. So these are the few glimpses of Train the Trainer conducted in Delhi, in Punjab, in Jupiter Hospital, Thane, Mumbai, and in Hyderabad KIMS Hospital. So what is our future plan is? Future plan is to create champions, because when we registered in Mumbai also, we got only around 32 participants. I'm sure that there are many more who need to get more awareness. Many of the organizations are doing it, but there are many more awareness to be created. So to create simulation champions, and also the focus is to have in situ simulation, and psychological safety of the nurses also will be taken into consideration, so that every training will be simulation based training. The more important or emphasis has to be given for the debriefing excellence program, which is the core part in simulation training program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shine, for taking us through this. The important aspect of simulation is the debriefing. Every novice nurse, when her errors or whatever has happened during the situation has been debriefed in a very polite way, she is able to understand and she never forgets that. So that's the great thing of simulation, and simulation is now being compulsory by the Indian Nursing Council, and every hospital has started to set. I'm sure ANI platform will be used more, and people will get more ideas from experts here. Thank you, Dr. Shine, for sharing that knowledge. Next we have Ms. Chanda Sen, who will be talking to us about standardizing of Foley's catheter care. So she says it's an 8 months journey where individually she was able to collect information. So all of us know catheter care is a great challenge, and one of COTI is one of the greatest areas of concern, because each hospital has its own practice. If only we have a standard practice which is followed everywhere. It is not according to each doctor and according to every patient situation, but a standardized patient care, if it is done, it can cut cost on the healthcare and for the patients. Let's hear from Chanda.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, respected dignitaries, nursing leaders, and my dear colleagues. Today I am privileged to present a collaborative evidence-based approach initiative which is conducted by the various nursing personnel from different hospitals across the India. I am representing ANEICON group, Infection Prevention and Control chapter. This is our special interest group, and these are the members. Our initiation was bridging the gap, standardizing catheter and perineal care using the non-disinfectant water wipes. So I would like to share a small story of a clinical situation. In one evening, we are discussing regarding the Foley's catheter care within our ASIG IP team. And when the nurse started sharing their thoughts and the current practice regarding the Foley's catheter care, surprisingly we found there is a variation in practice. Why these variations? Somebody are using soap and water, somebody are using antiseptic solution, and some are using distilled water. And few areas still now they didn't standardize their practices. So this discussion had the greater impact for our initiations. But one thing was common. They are genuinely believe that they are practicing the right practice for giving the safest care towards the patient. So this initiation not only identifying who are doing the wrong practice, rather to identify the gap between the evidence and the standardizations. Because we believe variation in practice, it means variation in patient safety. So we have done the literature of review. Literature supports in few areas regarding Foley's catheter care, that is for the gentle cleaning, minimal catheter manipulation, maintaining catheter securement and standardizing as well. But in few areas still there is not strongly supported by the literature, that is routine use of disinfection as well as excessive use of antiseptic exposure on the mucus. So we have fixed our aims and objective. Our aim was to standardize the Foley's catheter care practice and assess the feasibility as an evidence-based approach. Our objective was to assess the baseline catheter care practice using a structured audit tool, to identify and quantify the practice gap by comparing current practice, and finally to evaluate the feasibility of implementation of standardizing catheter care practice. we have conducted the national survey where within 470 samples, we have found that there is a significant variation in catheter care practice. Providine iodine usage till now is 45.7, whereas the normal saline usage was 38.5, and the distilled water or the sterile water was 2.8. So we proceed for our final process from the approval of any leadership team to the final implementation of the audit. First, we develop our standardizations based on evidence-based practice, expert opinion, recommended guidelines, and the expert opinion from within our ASIG IP team. We standardize our procedure. And we mainly focused evidence-based practice, consistency, simplicity, patient comfort, as well as the A's for the implementation for our nurses, which is very important. So from the SOP development followed by competency checklist development, audit structure tool development, as well as feasibility check, nurses training at the bedside, and for the final audit implementations. One by one, we have developed our process flow. So what was actually the intervention in this area? It is very simple. We use non-disinfected water wipes for the regular routine Foley's catheter care. It was the implementation of a standardized evidence-based Foley's catheter care approach following the standard structured audit tool to check the practice and the adherence compliance for this. So first we have checked the feasibility, whether it is feasible within our nurses, is it comfortable for our patient or not. So in the feasibility check, total sample size was 53 and it was successful implementations, and there was no major modification in the feasibility check. So finally, we have thought and we have done the training in the bedside for the bedside nurses, and the ICN has done the final audit implementations under the supervision of the ASIG member. Total sample size was 50. 7 hospitals across the India, they have participated in this audit, and the findings depict that there was a significant improvement. The compliance rate was 95%. There is a remarkable improvement in the consistency, reduced unnecessary catheter handling, and positive feedback from the nurses. The nursing perspective, the feedback, the uses for the water wipes for Foley's catheter care, overall compliance was 94% from the staff. The main reflecting area, 96%, it depicts for the easy to use in the routine catheter care practice. Reduce the complexity of the catheter care procedure was 94%. Whereas 90% average is promote gentle care and the patient-friendly cleansing and help for the consistency for the practices. So for sustaining this evidence-based approach, we thought that continue regular audits, organize the workshop and the refresher training across the India. Along with we also incorporated this practice in our induction program as well, and institutionalized standardized practice. Moving forward, create awareness across the institutions and expand multi-center collaborations, which is very much required to implement it. Finally, we can conclude that initially we have found there is a variation in practice, but a simple step, that is use of non-disinfectant water wipes approach, was feasible, practical, and well accepted among our nurses and within the nurse leader across the India. So we can believe that standardized nursing practice, it means standardized patient care for better outcomes. Thank you so much. These are my reference. Thank you to ANEICON and Madam Thankang for giving the continuous support and guidance for us for make it successful. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chanda, for taking us through that. So I hope all of you accept the fact that standardized catheter care is something which is very, very important. I remember when we were doing a procedure manual, when I asked my CNO, could you please update and just go through this thing? So she said, ma'am, there are 2 doctors and there are 2 different practices. So what do I say? So this happens in many hospitals where, according to the nephrologist or the intensivist, but whatever said and done, the nursing care part, the catheter care or whatever we do should be a standard one. We should never compromise on that. So keeping that in mind, that's how this study was conducted, and this will be available shortly Annie will be implementing this so that we will be taking up the training program so that a standard nursing care for Foley's catheter care would be available across India the same way. And as nurses, we need to stand together to say this is the way, and the nursing care stands with me, not with the doctors. Thank you, Chanda, once again. And now we go on to the next speaker, Ms. Biji Jaydeep, who will be talking to us about pressure injury prevention. She works with the nursing group Quality Head Medanta Hospital. And this is again another area of concern for nurses, where pressure injuries are largely preventable. So it doesn't require a doctor's order to change the position or to check every handover. We need to check on the patient's skin, and a proper assessment can definitely prevent pressure injuries. Let's hear from her what she has done in her study. Over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Good morning, all. Thank you, ANEICON, Annie, and especially Tangam ma'am for this, to make it happen, because it was not that easy journey. It took lots of time to come to the conclusion of what are we going to do to prevent pressure ulcer. So, like, safest care is not achieved by chance. It is achieved when prevention is designed into every system, every process, and every patient interaction. That is what we have believed from the starting itself from Tangam ma'am. And then we understood that, okay, pressure injury is one of the pain area for every nurse sitting here. Do you all agree to me? Yes? Is there any nurse who is not scared of pressure injury? Okay, so don't worry, there is no need to worry now. We have a solution for this. Annie has, with the help of Tangam ma'am, we have designed a system for that. I'll explain you in detail. Before going to, I'll give you a brief introduction about that, what we have done. So this SIG, this special interest group, was focusing on pressure injury prevention, not the management. So I had this team with me when I was doing this work with the mentorship of Tangam ma'am. Title of this intervention is Annie National Standards for Pressure Injury Prevention. So what was our idea? To create a certification program, or what we called an accreditation type of thing, to prevent pressure ulcer. So for that, this one is the framework, like National Nurse-led Initiative, which focuses on prevention and measurable implementation. This is built especially for Indian healthcare system. For that, reason for that is even now there are multiple type of processes which is ongoing to prevent pressure ulcer. It exists in variability in prevention practices, increasing complexity of high-risk patients. It's not like maybe 10 years ago, how patients are in ICU, because we have advanced treatment system, but maybe we are not that advanced in care of patients. And every time documentation is there, but do we have actual implementation? And need for measurable and auditable standards. These were the points what led us to this conclusion that, okay, we need a system in place to make it happen. So how we have done? First thing what we did is there are so many evidence-based practices, literatures and everything. So we have made it in one Excel sheet and understood, okay, how many we can review that. And then we gone through the literature review. With my team, everybody together, we did a literature review and came to the conclusion of few points. Then we drafted the standards and objective elements. After that, we have created a small self-assessment tool, audit toolkit type of thing. We were simultaneously doing the pilot audit of the tool, or with the tool. By the time Madam Sushila Samuel, an expert in this pressure injury thing, she has reviewed the document what we have prepared, and then we did a pilot audit and a CAT development. So from all this work, what sorry, I forgot to mention. In between, we have gone, Tangamma, with the help of Tangamma, we have gone through the Delphi method-based expert review also. So in that, these leaders were part of that. And came to the framework, like we have developed 7 standards for pressure injury prevention. In that, 76 objective elements are there. We have identified quality indicators, that those are like structure, process and outcome based quality indicators. Audit framework is by now ready, like with the evidence based external audit, and we have developed a competency assessment toolkit for nurses, like what in which all areas nurses should be competent to prevent pressure ulcer. So what are the standards which addresses? First one is, it's not only the position changing. If we are asking someone like what to do to prevent pressure ulcer, we often say change the position and change the bed, alpha bed, isn't it? So that is not the exact thing what we can do to prevent pressure ulcer. There are so much more. First one is risk assessment we can do religiously. Second, skin assessment, repositioning, support surfaces, nutrition, hydration, device related prevention, critical care risks, and workflow integration, documentation and monitoring of QI. These all are the parameters what standard is mentioning in this framework. This framework moves beyond not just documentation, beyond documentation we are focusing on implementation. So this is going to be a certification program through ANI, and how it works means like first hospital who are interested to go with certification can apply for that. Registration fee and all these things, ANI executive members will be disclosing it soon. Then once you are registered, you will get a toolkit. Standard book will be given to you. Audit tool, like same like NABH or nursing excellence, you will be getting a self-assessment toolkit. Based on that, you can understand the gap existing in your system. Then you will get a framework of how this certification will happen. You'll get, after registration, you will get 3 months of time to implement all these standards what is mentioned in the book, and then an external on-site audit will be happening by the ANI auditors. So they will assess on records what you are documenting. They will observe the practice. There will be staff interaction and high-risk patient sampling. So scoring, required score to be certified is like 80% compliance to the standards. And how audit preparation or auditor, train the trainer program will happen. Auditors will be trained. Knowledge partner, we have Arjo Handle with us. So they are experts in this area. So they will be training the auditors along with the help of ANI leadership. And standardized audit methodology will be followed, and then competency based preparation. And co-branded, trainers will be getting the certificate also. Why this is again important? Because safer patient care, standardized patient prevention practices, stronger nursing leadership, measurable quality outcomes, and reduce HAPI. This is the area where some of the patient safety committee and all these things, like nursing leaders, and usually bend their head and sit at the meeting. So if we follow all these things in a set manner, for sure, we'll be able to achieve zero harm. So here is the call to action. Those who are aspired, we can participate in pilot implementation and standardize the practices in your organization, then build the trainers or the capacity, and then strengthen patient safety culture at hospitals. So this is all about this program. Pressure injury prevention is not a task. It's a system responsibility. Blaming a staff doesn't work. We need to start acting on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Viji, Jaydeep, for that excellent presentation. Audience, I hope all of you have heard about this. So this is going to come up shortly, and you can take up the pilot study at your organization. You can join the course. So this is purely conducted by ANI. And remember, it's a standard nursing care is something which is very, very important. And if you are trained, you could train your group of people who are working along with you. So yesterday, we had the privilege of, during the inaugural, we have released the white paper. So make sure that you read it, and please join this initiative so that each one of us across India will have a standard practice at our setup. So next we go on to now, we have another 30 minutes and just one presentation. So I want each of the participants to kindly think about whatever presentations have been done. You can ask questions and clarify your doubts. The speakers would be ready to clarify your doubts. So we'll go on to the next presenter, Dr. Elizabeth Workey. Now each one of us know that nurses play a very important role, and we are concerned about their physical health. We make sure that the work safety is kept in pace, and all sorts of comforts we try to do at our organization at the CNO level or at the administration level. But the psychological factors are something which is questionable, what really goes through. And these days with Gen Zs, we can't even find out how they really look, what they look is different from what is going on within them. So they carry so much of trauma, but still they keep working like robots. So in 2025, with this thought in mind, the psychological aspect of every nurse has to be looked into, and it is a major concern. So with that in mind, a survey was conducted across India, and about 3,906 nurses have participated in this survey. I'm sure some of you are seated here also would have passed on the Google form to your colleagues, and you would have participated. So now let's hear from Dr. Elizabeth Workey, who has gone through this, and she has concised, and she will be presenting the report to us. And this is very important. More than the physical care, what we give to our nurses, the psychological aspect is something which is of a great concern. Over to Dr. Elizabeth Workey.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for that introduction. First and foremost, let me express my heartfelt gratitude to Annie for conducting this survey, especially with the guidance of Tangam ma'am. We were a team with Mr. Shankar Shanmugam, Shamba Gupta, and myself, and as Tangam ma'am as a lead for the survey. So before moving to this presentation, I would like to ask you, as leaders of health professionals within nursing, can you say that your nurses are happy? How many of you say that your nurses are happy? Can you raise anyone? Anyone? Out of a scale of 100, 90%? Yeah, 90%. Some have raised their hands. 80%? Some have raised. 70%? Yes. 60%? No. 50%? Yeah, hands are raising more. 40? Yes. 30? So that 30, from 50 to below, I think it was raised by the ground level working staff. The above level has been raised by the leaders. So we'll see the reality, what has happened with the survey. So every day the nurses save lives, but we have to see who protects the people, who protect the patients. So with this aim, the background of the study, why the survey was conducted, as we all know that the nurse's real story, it's the unsung, silent story of every nurses, that they do the long shifts, they have so much of emotional stress, both from the leadership as well as the patient, bystanders, the violence and aggressions around them, the fatigue that they have, the fear of speaking up. And the question is that, are our nurses truly safe? So with this in mind, the survey was conducted among 3,906 nurses across India. So the objectives of the study was to assess the safety perceptions of nurses, identify workplace hazards, understand lived experiences, gather actionable suggestions, finally to strengthen advocacy for nurse well-being. So with these objectives in motion, we had the research methodology was as follows. We have done the design was a cross-sectional online survey. The study period was within May to July 2025 with the sample size of 3,906 nurses. The settings was where the private plus the public sectors, and the tool used was in order to assess the physical, psychological, and organizational domains of nurses, of their safety aspects. So this had three parts. Part A had the demographic questions. Second was a safety perception scale, which was a Likert scale, and three open-ended questions. So this reliability of the tool was assessed, and it has been identified with the Cronbach's alpha with a score of 0.91, indicating high reliability of the tool. So the data analysis were as follows. So as I mentioned, the demographic data, we had around 3,906 nurses. In that, the major findings were that 82% of the bedside nurses have responded. The remaining were some of the deputy CNOs, CNOs, and the higher level managers. Then we had 52% from critical care nurses, 93.5% from private sector, and the remaining percentage were from the public sector. And the largest representation were from Delhi, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. So the good news which we identified from the survey was that they had a strong perception, that is around 93.6% had agreed that they had a strong perception regarding their physical safety. They have appraised that, or they have appreciated that they had the infection prevention and physical safety measures were in place in relation to the PPE, infection prevention, and safety systems. So it was like very happy to see that we as leaders or the healthcare organizations are providing all the physical safety measures for a staff nurse to work effectively. But the silent crisis which have evolved from the safety survey was the psychological safety was weak. So it was heartened to see that 70.1% of the nurses felt fatigue and long working hours were their main concern. The nurses also reported burnout, emotional exhaustion, staffing shortage, and fear of retaliation. The most common concerns raised by them were, among the 100%, among the 1,306 nurses, 17.7% said that the needle stick injury were their more major concern. 16.6% reported staffing shortage as the concern. 14.3% mentioned about the ergonomic injuries. 7.8% highlighted the fatigue as a common concern, and 7.7% had the concern about their leadership support. So the reality gap was that the bedside nurses had a lower perception, or they have come up with a lower safety perception regarding the safety aspects. So a chi-square test was done, and that 62.54 was a score for the chi-square value with a level of significance at 0.001. And who felt less safer was the other area, the critical care nurses. They were also having lower confidence with a chi-square value of 71.74 at the level of confidence that's less than 0.01. And who felt less safe? The leaders, though the nurses were having the perception that they were having less confidence or lower perception regarding their safety, the leaders had a higher perception, stating that they had a higher safety perception regarding their workforce. So the recommendations, what must change? We can have certain recommendations. We have given certain recommendations on the structural, cultural, as well as the psychological aspects. So in structural area, we can have safe staffing, better infrastructure, and fatigue monitoring to be insisted. In cultural, the just culture reporting system has to be highlighted. That leadership visibility, especially in listen to frontline staff, the bridge policy and practice between them, and become safety coaches for them. In psychological, the counseling support, mental wellness programs were some of the recommendations. So we have to move from the compliance to compassion. So the various limitations of the study were that it was limited representation from certain states. It was an online distribution bias would have been happen. Self-reported perception versus objective measures was another limitation of the study. The cross-sectional design was adopted for the study, and the limited public sector sample size was some of the limitations of the study. So to conclude, one truth emerged, that nurse safety is not only on the other areas, but in fact, it should also be in the workforce resilience, the patient safety, as well as healthcare quality. So before asking nurses to care more, we must care for them better. So the hands that heal deserve healing too. When we are in the boardrooms, we feel that everything seems to be fine and everything is better. But the reality is that the nurses in the bedside, they might be having silently suffering. So it's a place where we have to intervene and provide the best support to improve the psychological safety of all our nurses. So with this, I end this presentation. And thank you so much for the guidance from Thangam ma'am. She was a constant motivator behind us, and all the team which we have contributed to this. And we feel that as leaders, together we can build up the future generation where they will be safe in their psychological aspects more than their physical areas. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Dr. Elizabeth Workey, for that study. Though the study had certain limitations, but still, if you had noted, 82% of the nurses, bedside nurses, have responded, and 52% of them are from the critical care units, which means that those who have answered to the survey are people who are at the bedside 24/7 caring for our patients. So I'm sure we can take this report, and I strongly suggest, normally when I talk to our director, I always say, so many things happens to nurses at the bedside. Young nurses struggling with so many trauma, hidden things within them, which troubles them, and with all that, the mobile addictions. Without mobile, they cannot survive. So 8 hours when they are gloved up and when they have to work in a safe setting, we need to have concern. Just looking at the nurses' facial expressions in the morning matters. So Annie's passion to action, all the 4 reports which, Annie reports which were presented, each one of them spoke about Ms. Thangam being the pillar behind, and she feels. Let's give a big hand to Thangam ma'am for initiating such, whatever thoughts come, she tries to give it to youngsters, and the building up the leadership is something which is very, very important. So the simulation based, the first one is simulation based, though it is in a baby stage in each of our organizations. I feel as an educator, as an academician, it has strongly helped my students and the novice nurses working at our hospital, because when you do a debriefing to them with concern, because she has not done an error to a patient which has affected the patient safety, but before she steps into the patient arena, we are able to talk to her about what is expected of her. So she has a time to correct herself. So that is something which is appreciable, and I urge every institution, you can contact Ms. Shine, how to go about, and you can have sessions at your organization so that your directors will have a thought. So Annie's passion to action is, it is not that any other conference, we sit together and talk about concept papers, and it's all known, and it's, if you Google, you can get that. But you are really passionate about doing something at your workplace, and there should be a change. So after this ANEICON 2026, none of you are going to go back from here idle. Whatever thoughts you have today, ignite it tomorrow to the directors of your hospital. And as CNOs, as staff nurses, if you have heard, go back. And many of us have a lot of ideas coming to us when we hear something, right? Do not leave that ideas just like that. Make sure you share it with somebody and try to do something. Each of the organization has to do it. The other two, the standardizing catheter care and the pressure injury, will be available at Annie for your training programs. So it's a certification program, so please join and learn and impart that knowledge to others, and make sure your standard of practice is common to every patient who steps into your hospital, whereby the patient safety can be ensured. And surveys. Such surveys are very important. You feel your nurses have concern at your workplaces, make sure you do a small scale study, and based on evidence based, when you go back and report to your higher ups and when you talk at boardrooms, that matters, because when you are concerned about your staff nurses, immediately action would be taken than saying, sir, do this for them, do that for them. With evidences, numbers can do wonders. So thank you each one of you. Yes.
One thing, ma'am, for this white paper has been published. It was released during the, ma'am will be telling about it. So.
Can I take?
Yes,
okay.
please, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. So I am very happy to see all the 4 leaders sitting there, and I always say, Kal acha hai. The future of nursing is better. Any one of you can be there anytime, as long as you are willing to work with the seniors and teach us and we will learn from you. If you think they are all thanking me, but in the journey, I also learned a lot. It is always a, you know, mutually benefiting relationship when you are trying to mentor someone, because we learn. So thank you, all of you. Publicly, I wanted to say the chairs and the team members in the ASIC, and Dr. Rosaline, for example, is going to slowly get inducted as the mentor for Patient Safety Fellowship Program as I trying to wean. So along with her, Ishita Chanda will be helping her. So we are trying to do a succession planning so that the program will not wean away. The only ask is invest time. All these things will not happen if the time is not invested. So just for clarity purposes, evidence-based guidelines will be available on the website. The soft copy will be uploaded. The white paper will also be uploaded on the website. Only the national standards for pressure injury prevention will not be uploaded, because that is going to be a certification, so hospitals need to apply. But before that, ANE has to plan for the training of the auditors. ANE members will be asked to apply and the auditors will be trained, and MOU will be signed with Arjo Handley to be the knowledge partner to train the auditors, and then the auditors will physically go and check, and then only the certification will be given. And I'm very proud to say that Madam Shushila is an expert in this field, and she feels that such a work is not done anywhere across the globe by a nursing community. So we all can be very proud of that. You know, please clap for nurses. So thank you so much, all of you did. This is actually passion to action, and I'm happy that I was just telling Dr. Falakshi that if more and more people will join hands, maybe one full day will be only our work being presented. And I dream that one day it will be like that. Whole day, ANE members are going to present what they have done. Can we dream that? थोड़ा जोर से बोलेंगे, yes? Okay. Thank you. Please,
Thank
over
you,
to you.
Thank you, Madam Thangam. And those of you who are seated as the audience, next year, Passion to Action, we need more of volunteers to come up with your initiatives. I'm sure a lot of ideas are going on. Any doubts from the audience? Do you wish to ask any question?
My question is to the special interest group for pressure injury prevention. As you were preparing the guidelines, did you find that the interventions needed at the patients admitted in the wards and the interventions needed for the patients in the ICUs are different? And have you also identified the need for different pressure injury risk assessment tool for the ICU and for the ward? Are they part of the guidelines?
No. Obviously, the assessment and care pattern in ICU and ward will be different, because in ICU, the patient, condition of the patient and the risk factors are different. In ward, most of the time, we don't have any restrictions to move the patient. But in ICU, a patient is in ECMO and patient sometimes in IABP and all these things, there are most of the time restrictions that you are not supposed to move the patient. So then in that condition, the intervention should be different. So in that terms, ICU and ward, we have differentiations. But in terms
ICU also has severe morbidity index and other associated factors, and which makes the risk even more.
And we have advanced technologies and care patterns right now, rather comparing to the maybe 10, 20 years back. So patients' lifespan is, with this disease condition, in stay in ICU is also getting increased. That is also a risk factor. So based on that, yes, difference is there in ICU and ward. We cannot compare this. We cannot take care of in same way patients in ICU and ward in terms of pressure injury.
Okay.
And audit tool, there is no
PI risk assessment. Like Braden scale is generally used for PI risk
No,
assessment.
we haven't created any assessment tool for that because every hospital is following the like reference tool what we have existing.
Yeah.
We didn't created any separate.
So globally, there is consensus that Braden's risk tool is no longer valid for ICU patients, and there have been attempts for various other kinds of tools available for ICU patients. So I thought maybe as you are preparing this, you have thought about it. And I have a second question. There is also various reports which says about the 2-hourly positioning is not the ideal way. It has to be based on the patient, patient's level and the patient need. So have you thought or have you brought in something in the standards?
So
Yes, ma'am.
See, these standards which are created, they are not created in India. They are all taken from international guidelines like national NPUAP, EPUAP, all those bodies. We have brought it all together and we have put the standards together so that everything is in one place, easy to understand. And this too early concept has been gone for many years now. So we have not recommended it is too early. It is based on patient needs. So all that you are saying, it is all part of that. So if you want to have an access to the standards, be the first hospital to apply. Correct? Then obviously in the first year, we will get feedback from hospitals, and then if it is required, we will look into, because that's why we did not generate any new evidence. It is all that is available globally, brought together in a format. One book, these many standards, these many objective elements. And as I told you, Dr. Shushila has validated it because she's the expert who spent decades in this particular domain. So that's why I approached her, because she is the one who can tell whether we have covered. And I don't know how many hours she spent and they spend and then my hours. So the document is one place where you can, otherwise you will be reading 10, 20 papers to see that what am I supposed to do. So everything has come together in one document. So please read, and if you have something new that you are finding, as I told you yesterday, please collaborate. And please work after the conference. That is important. Otherwise, we will come here, we'll talk and go back. So please, I welcome Dr. Rajani to collaborate with us, and I think you're doing something, so we'll be very happy to look at it. Because we have access through Madam Shushila, international experts, so we can even, contact them and, get their support. So yes, we don't have enough evidence in Indian setting because we don't do enough research. So we don't find evidence-based practices in India. So we do borrow. So what we have done is bring everything together and make one document. That's why it is into domains and that many objective elements. Many times people say too early changing. What does it mean? It has got no meaning. So there is a meaning now. There is a domain which says what does it mean by repositioning. The word is only repositioning as per the patient's condition. So then there will be some objective elements. What does that mean? So it's almost like the NABH document. There is a standard and what you are supposed to. So auditors will be going and looking for those objective evidences, and that is what the auditors are going to be trained. And that will be trained by Arjo as the knowledge partner, because they have the maximum experience, right? So I hope I answered that question. I have to support them, no? Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ranjani, for that question. I hope you got the answer. There was somebody else who raised. We have another 9 more minutes. If you have any questions.
Hi, Tangam. Hello. Tangam, I just want to add on to what Madam Tangam has told. See, there is a huge challenge, I'm extremely happy with the pressure injury. I want to continue with that discussion. There are a lot of patients these days getting admitted with IAD. incontinence associated dermatitis and with the continuous diarrhea and other complications. So I think in your prevention, some kind of an assessment how we can take measures so that we can prevent hospital acquired pressure injury. I think the whole study is on new PI developing in the hospital. But IAD can lead to PI happy. Something of that assessment, there is a tool available for that, in addition to Braden scale. And also we have CAPI coming. So how do we differentiate between happy and CAPI there? All in the initial stage.
Thank you. So a lot of inputs coming now when the one document is released, DAPI and CAPI and MARCI and IAD. So there are mentions how to differentiate IAD, how to differentiate. It's very easy differentiation. So this one is particularly about pressure injury. Injuries that happen because of the pressure on the patient, not because of the pressure of a device. That is called DAPI. So that differentiation is there. So hopefully Josephine will be invited to create another white paper or standards on MARCI, IAD and DAPI. Can we do that?
Yes.
She's a senior leader, no. One more ASIC here. Yes? Hello? Yes, Bulu. Yes. She said yes. She is my classmate from Holy Family, so I can take some liberty. Otherwise, I cannot take liberty. No.
Hi friends, I have around 80 to 100 CAPI getting admitted every month. Minimum is 80 to 100 community acquired pressure injury from 3rd to 4th stage and unstageable. And IAD around 20 to 30 minimum, leading to CAPI almost 1 to 5%. The girls are doing all the measures what madam is telling. Arjo Hanle is posted there, their mattresses are there, madam knows Samuel and everything. And we have the pressure ulcer screening graph also. You all know that. Very popular graph is there, the girls are monitoring. So CAPI is differentiated in a different color, hospital acquired is differentiated in a different color. Everything is done, but there are 100 other factors making the pressure injury more horrible and not being able to implement 100% of what standards are telling. That is what we have to.
That's what we are going to learn. When hospitals will apply, when an auditor will go and assess, we will come to know what are our challenges. Then we need to capture that. Then we need to publish. That is the way that we can grow our body of knowledge, correct? Otherwise, we will be always borrowing. So already we have 2 hospitals willing to apply. Gangaram, Dr. Rajini. There will be more people applying. Yeah? Okay, thank you.
So
I think
ANEICON
time is up.
2027, already 2 studies are already planned and we will have 2 presentations next year. Let's give a big hand for Ms. Josephine and Ms. Ranjani. Next year they will be presenting. So any more questions? I saw some hands raised at the back.
Good morning. And good morning to all the officials and Mrs. Dr. Rachel and her team for taking very good initiative. This is the evidence-based practice initiatives. The research is really very, very, very important. And in addition to this, I want to add on one point. With the master's program, there are a lot of studies being done, but these studies are, if we focus on clinical practice, hospital-based studies, it will add on to the rich knowledge of clinical practice, and it can come through for publications and all, and it can be a source of publications and to bring in more of evidence-based practice through our MSc studies. What we see more and more, even PhD studies, all related to knowledge, attitude, and even practice, knowledge on practice. It's a new word invented. And adding on to only knowledge attitude questions borrowed from foreign countries, the tools, and not able to modify to our country and our culture and societal needs. So I think there we have to concentrate. And finally, the results. Now, I really appreciate the way it is presented and the results have been shown and the conclusions. I really want to give a big applause for all of you for your presentations. Very meaningful. Whereas our presentations, our meaning the MSc presentations are showing only mean and the mean knowledge and whether it is correlated now, but doesn't give any sense of to use the evidences for practice. So I think there we have to bring in change. If we collaborate education to nursing practice, I think we can bring in rich experience and clinical materials for our patient care safety. Thank you,
Thank you,
and I
ma'am.
want to appreciate.
Thank
you
you,
all.
Dr. Rebecca,
And,
for highlighting on the importance
thank you.
of doing more of clinical studies and not stopping with doing a study, making sure that it's implemented. So thank you for each one of you who have given your compliments and also those who have asked questions. So with this, we wind up this track 8. We are on time. I thank each one of the presenters for working beyond their work time. Okay, it's not during their duty. They have taken time to prepare and do the study and present it to you. So ANEICON 2027, more white papers and more studies will be presented. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Rosen, ma'am. Requesting Dr. Rosen, ma'am, and the speakers to kindly move towards the photo corner. If there are any more questions, we will be adding more members to the special interest group next year.